My grandfather used to say something that always stuck with me. Son, respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you demand. And today, after a year of threats, insults, and humiliation, Mexico is finally demanding that respect, not with empty words, not with political speeches, but with action, with tariffs, with laws, and with a plan that no one saw coming. While Trump was canceling visas for Mexicans, threatening invasion, and calling our neighbor a national security threat, Claudia Sheinbaum was preparing something that would change the game forever. Now that the plan is in motion, Trump doesn't know what to do. Today, I'm going to tell you the story that the media doesn't want you to see. The story of how Mexico shut the door to humiliation, how they responded to every insult with action, and why Trump is discovering that you can't mess with Mexico. Welcome to the real story. But before we continue, let me ask you this. How many times were we told that Mexico was done for? How many times were we told Trump would destroy Mexico? How many times were we told Mexico had no option but to submit? Well, here we are 1 year later, and Mexico is still standing, stronger than ever, while Trump struggles to keep up with his own contradictions. To understand what's really going on, let's rewind a year. January 20th, 2025. Donald Trump returns to the White House with one clear goal: to dominate Mexico. From day one, the threats began. A 25% tariff on all Mexican goods, declaring 8 cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and the worst part, threatening military intervention on Mexican soil. Trump wanted Mexico to bend the knee. He wanted Sheinbaum to lower her head. He wanted Mexicans to accept being treated as second-class citizens. He wanted Mexico to accept being a colony, a satellite, a second-rate country, but he didn't know who he was dealing with. Claudia Sheinbaum, with her career as a scientist, engineer, and energy expert, is a woman who rose to power, not through connections or family, but through hard work and results. And that scientific mindset is exactly what Mexico needed in the face of Trump's empty rhetoric. While Trump shoots from the hip with impulsive tweets, Sheinbaum works with data and strategy. While Trump yells, Sheinbaum calculates, and the results speak for themselves. The first sign came on January 8th, 2025. Trump had announced he would change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. This was a direct insult, a provocation that couldn't be ignored. But Sheinbaum's response was brilliant. Standing in front of a map during her press conference, she pointed to the southwestern United States, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, and said something no one expected. Why don't we call it Mexican America? Sounds nice, doesn't it? The room went silent. Sheinbaum wasn't joking. She was reminding Trump that those territories were Mexican until 1848. History has memory, and Mexico wasn't going to stay quiet. She then sent a letter to the director of Google protesting the changes to the maps. She reminded them that the name Gulf of Mexico has been recognized by the United Nations since 167. That moment was a defining moment for Mexico's response to the Trump administration. Trump thought he could mock Mexico without consequences. He thought changing the name of a gulf was some kind of harmless joke. But Sheinbaum reminded him of something he would prefer to forget. More than half of today's U.S. territory used to be Mexico, California, Texas, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. That was all Mexico until 1848, and when Sheinbaum proposed calling it Mexican America, she wasn't making a joke. She was sending a clear message. I know the history better than you. 400 years of history versus a tweet from Trump. Who won that battle? History. But words were just the beginning. On March 4th, 2025, Trump made good on his threat. A 25% tariff on all Mexican products. Mexico didn't sit around waiting. On March 9th, Sheinbaum called for a massive assembly in Mexico City's Zócalo. Thousands of people showed up, business leaders, governors from all political parties. And there, in front of that crowd, Sheinbaum said the words that would define her presidency. Cooperation, coordination, yes, subordination, never. The crowd erupted in applause. That day, Mexico sent a clear message to Washington. You will not intimidate us, and that message is now reverberating across the continent. If Mexico can stand up to Trump, why can't others? That's the question now being asked in Canada, Brazil, Europe, and Asia. And the answer is simple. Yes, you can. You can resist with dignity. You can negotiate with firmness. You can defend your sovereignty without violence. Mexico is proving it every day. The most interesting thing came next. Just 2 days earlier, on March 6th, Trump had called Sheinbaum. And after that call, he paused the tariffs. Why? Because he realized Mexico wasn't going to back down. But Schein didn't trust Trump's pauses. She knew the threats would return, so she prepared something bigger. On April 3rd, 2025, Sheinbaum announced Plan Mexico, 18 concrete programs with one goal: economic independence. The plan included boosting corn production from 21.3 million tons to 25 million by 2030, increasing bean production from 730,000 tons to 1.22 million, expanding milk production, infrastructure projects totaling 1.70-kilometer road distributors, and 500,000 projected jobs by 2026. Plan Mexico is Sheinbaum's answer to Trump. Instead of fighting, building; instead of depending, producing. It's a bet on Mexico, on Mexicans, on the future. While Trump talks about walls, Schein builds roads. While Trump threatens with tariffs, Sheinbaum creates jobs. While Trump insults, Sheinbaum works. That's the difference between noise and action. But that's not all, because while Plan Mexico strengthens the internal economy, Mexico is also protecting its industry from external forces. In December 2025, Mexico approved new tariffs that came into effect on January 1st, 2026. 163 tariff fractions modified. 17 sectors affected: auto parts, textiles, appliances, toys, footwear, furniture, paper, cosmetics, with rates from 5% to 50%. Who do these tariffs affect? Countries without trade agreements with Mexico, primarily China, India, South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Brazil. The automotive sector received the strongest protection, 50% tariffs on imported vehicles. It used to be just 20%. Auto parts were also protected. 141 auto parts, 13 types of light vehicles, 308 clothing items, 398 textiles. Mexico is sending a message. We protect our industry, and we protect our people. Now, let me tell you something else. Since Trump returned to the White House, Sheinbaum has spoken to him on the phone 15 times. That's more than once a month. It's a frequency that's unusual for two neighboring leaders. And every call is for the same thing. Trump threatens, Sheinbaum negotiates. Trump backs down. Why so many calls? Because every time Trump threatens, Sheinbaum has to put out the fire. The media have called it a political ordeal. But think about it this way. If Trump truly had the power he claims, he wouldn't need to make so many calls. He wouldn't need to negotiate. He would simply act. The fact that he calls 15 times means he needs Mexico more than he admits. Mexico is the main trading partner of the United States. If Trump destroys that relationship, the U.S. economy will sink, and he knows it. That's why the invasion threats never came true. Trump designated 8 cartels as foreign terrorist organizations on January 20th, 2025, the same day he returned to the White House. 6 of those cartels are Mexican: the Sinaloa Cartel, the CJNG, the Northeast Cartel, the New Mitoacan family, the Gulf Cartel, and United Cartels. Trump accused Mexico of providing safe havens for the cartels. Sheinbaum responded directly. It's false. Mexico is governed by its people. And then she proved with actions that Mexico is fighting the drug cartels. 37 cartel members were extradited to the U.S. in January 2026. At the U.S. request? Yes, but as a sovereign decision by Mexico. That's why the tariffs are paused, and that's why Trump had to accept that Mexico doesn't accept foreign troops. The only in-person meeting between Trump and Sheinbaum was on December 5th, 2025, at the 2026 World Cup draw. It wasn't a summit of confrontation. Do you know what that means? Trump doesn't have the control he claims. Now, let's take a look at the balance sheet for the first year. Trump promised to destroy Mexico. What did he achieve? Mexico implemented Plan Mexico with 18 development programs. Mexico imposed tariffs from 5% to 50% to protect its industry. Mexico rejected foreign troops, and Trump had to accept it. Mexico extradited 37 cartel members at the U.S. request, but it was a sovereign decision, not an imposition. Mexico reduced fentanyl trafficking by 50%, and Sheinbaum has 80% approval, according to France 24. Trump polls from CNN show that 58% of Americans believe he's focusing on the wrong priorities. Inflation in the U.S. is still above the Federal Reserve's target. U.S. manufacturing is in contraction, and Fidelity warns that Trump could lose Congress in the November elections. Karma exists. Trump promised to destroy Mexico, and 1 year later, he's paying the price. His tariffs have backfired. His voters are paying higher prices. His industry is shrinking. His popularity is sinking. And Mexico is still standing, stronger, more united, and more dignified. Now, let's look ahead. In July 2026, the TMC will be reviewed, the trade agreement between Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. Trump already said the treaty is irrelevant. He wants to renegotiate everything, but Mexico isn't sitting idly by. Schein has already renewed the trade agreement with Brazil in August 2025. She signed a new agreement with the European Union in January 2025, and she's open to negotiating with China, India, and South Korea. Mexico is diversifying. It's preparing for a world where it doesn't depend solely on the United States. That's strategic vision. While Trump threatens, Mexico builds alternatives. While Trump shouts, Mexico negotiates. While Trump tries to intimidate, Mexico strengthens. While Trump destroys bridges, Mexico builds new ones. That's the difference between a real leader and a bully with a microphone. My grandfather was right. Respect isn't asked for, it's demanded. And Mexico is finally demanding that respect. Not with screams, not with threats, not stooping to Trump's level through actions, through strategy, through dignity. Trump thought he could humiliate us with no consequences. He thought Schein would kneel. He thought Mexicans would accept being treated as second-class citizens. He was wrong. And now he's discovering that Mexico is not the weak country he imagined. We are the main trading partner of the world's largest economy. We are a country of 130 million people, with pride, with history, with dignity. We are the sons and daughters of people who crossed borders, who worked the fields, who built cities, who never gave up. We are the descendants of Aztecs and Mayans, of Spaniards and Africans, of all the bloodlines that mixed to create this nation. We have 5,000 years of history, 5,000 years of resistance, 5,000 years of not surrendering to anyone. And we're not going to surrender now. Mexico didn't close its doors to Americans, but it closed its doors to humiliation, to empty threats, to being treated as less, to abuse, to intimidation, to contempt. And that, dear friends, is what Trump will never understand. Because to understand that, he would need something he clearly doesn't have: respect for others, humility to acknowledge that he can't control everything, intelligence to understand that the world no longer accepts bullies. My grandfather would be proud to see Mexico today resisting, building, demanding respect, because respect is not asked for. It's demanded, and Mexico is finally demanding it. Thank you for joining me. If you found this video important, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because this story is just beginning, and Mexico will not step back. They've tried before. They invaded us before. They stole half our territory before. And here we are. More than 200 years of independence. More than 5,000 years of civilization. More than 100 million hearts beating with Mexican pride. Trump can keep threatening, keep insulting, keep lying, but he can't change who we are. And he can't change the fact that Mexico no longer kneels to anyone. Never again.